It's all the Rebbe. The Rebbe is teaching us his commentary on the Maimorim of Pada B'Shalom, and all of this is the Rebbe's thinking. As you know, that in the class that we had last Thursday, right? Last Thursday, we talked about the idea of Muhammad. I don't regret the class, but if I knew then what I know now, I would have not allowed myself to get so caught up in one point. The point is, a neshama in this world is fighting a war. And one of the mistakes you could make is fall asleep. Enjoy the peace. Enjoy Elam Hazeh. And then mefalt an shlafen, you fall asleep, and when you realize that you're sleeping, it's kind of hard to wake up. So you have to be aware that there's a milchama, there's a struggle. But in this maimer, the milchama is through Torah. In this maimer, the milchama is through Torah. You're not fighting the war through tefillah, which is a different kind of avodah. You're not fighting the war through mitzvahs, which is also called birurim, which is a different kind of avodah. You're fighting the war using Torah. You're using Torah to relate to the world with an appreciation and an understanding and an attitude that the world is my enemy. Okay, so let's learn. We're on page Tzadik Vav. Amdam. You see, Amdam, it's the last word on the line, 6 lines into the big paragraph. Amdam bazeh guf. When a person understands that in this world there is an attitude which is against the Eibishter's derech, and to be a Yid I have to follow the Eibishter's derech, and to follow the Eibishter's derech I have to contend. I can't give in, I can't melt, I can't become a part of what's considered the worldly normal. I have to belong to the Eibishter's normal. So I have to struggle. In this itself, there's a variety of different struggles. And in general, there's 2 methods of contending, of standing up to, of saying, I'm not a part of the world, even though I live in the world, but I'm not a part of the world, and struggling to be me in this world. And in general, there's 2 approaches. The kshem shabaveidas ha'adam, just like in life. Yashnam p'diya be'efen shel machon, is the person who redeems himself in this struggle against the world through a fight. And the meaning of a fight is, you fight today, you fight tomorrow, you fight next week. You never finish fighting. It's called iskafia. And then yapadiya b'shalom, where you fight and you win in a decisive way. Where you have peace, where the fight is over, which in general is called isabche. Or Torah, which is the difference. Is this going to be the whole class like this? Just give me a heads up. The whole class, people are going to walk in and out? That's a yes or a no. I think 8 girls walked in and out since I started. I think it's not even a guzman. It's a lot. I'm working on a poem called Moving Bodies. I teach in Achei Temimim. I can teach a class of 45 minutes and literally 50 times, more than once a minute. Someone's going to get up and walk around. The moving bodies. How difficult it is to focus, not to get nervous when bodies are moving, and to continue to teach. You will be a teacher at some point for some period of time, and you're going to hate it so much. Just appreciate how much you did it to others, not realizing it. I'm just going to talk to her because there's something interesting to say me. I'm just. That's a great word. I'm just. It's like donzerly or elemento, you know. I'm just. It's a word. I'm just. Okay. In Torah itself, engaging with the world through Torah itself, there's different approaches. Now, girls, how does Torah fight with the world? Let's be direct. How does Torah fight with the world? The answer, girls, is through enlightenment. The Torah doesn't fight with a pitchfork, with a hammer, with a nail. It doesn't even fight with the world with the heart. The Torah fights with the world with the mind. You use your brain to study ideas that give you the values that are going to make you different than the environment you're in. That's the type. You use Torah as a tool of not being swept away, not being put to sleep, not being really neutralized, to become like your environment. You want to be different than your environment. You want to be distinct. You want to be different. You're a yid. You know what are the difference between fish and mammals? Fish are the same temperature as the water they swim in. And they can be in water which is 2 or 3 degrees above freezing, and they're fine. It's amazing. How that works, nobody understands. But mammals have to be a certain internal temperature, and they're different than their environment. If it gets too hot, it's no good. If it gets too cold, it's weiter no good. It's called an endotherm. You have to keep yourself a constant temperature, and you fight with your environment to hold on to your temperature. A yid is a mammal. In this world, he's not a fish. In Gan Eden, he's a fish. Down here, he's a mammal. You have to maintain your temperature as distinct from your environment, and you use tools. One of those tools is Torah. Torah keeps you a yid. But Torah can keep you a yid in a way that's called milchama of Torah, and in the way that's called shalom of Torah. Let's read. There is 2 ways to learn Torah. In both cases, kinderlach, in both cases, girls, you're staying warm, you're staying different than the temperature of your environment through concepts, through your brain, not through your heart, and certainly not through a physical fight. But there's different types of concepts. There's concepts that study you and study your environment, point out the difference and say engage. And then there are concepts that just talk about the truth. In other words, that's the difference between nigla de Torah, which also tells you to stay different than your environment, but by juxtaposing you, by comparing and contrasting you with your environment. And then there's pnimis Torah. Pnimis Torah also makes you different than your environment because it says the truth, and the environment is a lie. It says, you want to be the truth. Let's read. Let the Rebbe do the talking. Okay, number 1. Oifen shalima da Torah. There's a style of learning Torah. We had this in Tanya a few days ago. As the pasuk says, a little kid you rear on a little kid level. And the Rebbe brings the Rambam. It's one of the most famous Rambams in the Rebbe Sichos, although the Rebbe disagrees with this Rambam based on the story with the Rebbe Rashab as a 5-year-old. I'm sure somebody at some point in your career as Beis Rivka, as Lubavitcher girls, learned the Sicha, that the Hira from the Sicha that the Rebbe Rashab cried. How come the Eibush to reveal himself to Avraham Avinu and doesn't reveal himself to me? So the Rebbe said that Sicha means that today every child could do things idealistically, which is different than this Rambam, which the Rebbe quotes in that Sicha that we're about to read. The Rambam explains in this commentary to the Mishnah. One has to look for various different solutions, methods. The learning and the rearing. Yasimu should be aligned to the path of the person doing the learning. Hana, the little boy or the little girl, based on where he's standing. And what is his level based on Shah at that hour. Like the Rambam explains it very practically. A little kid, you want him to learn, bribe him. Give him a cookie. Give him something to eat that tastes good. When he gets a little older, give him a toy. When he gets even a little older and toys are not going to work, give him a few dollars. And when it gets even older, and a few dollars are not going to work, flatter him. The Rambam speaks about shaloi lishma. You motivate a child for the wrong reasons, and slowly they mature, they reach the madrega lishma. You're speaking to the child. So the Alter Rebbe, for those of you who learn chitas rather than say chitas, we're holding Sharichat Monopedic Beis, yes? So we out of Yom Tov, we did the Havdama, Chinuch Katan. And in the Chinuch Katan, the Alter Rebbe asks the question, why would the Mishlei, why would Shlomo HaMelech say, Chanech Onan Api Darkei, Ein Zeh HaDerech HaEmes LaAmita? If you remember the Tanya, it's not the truth. If it's the way you treat a child, that means when the kid's going to grow up, you can teach him different. So why are you teaching a child a childish way if it's not the truth? And the answer is because Gam Ki Yaskin V'Yosam Yimena. You want that when he gets wiser and older, he shouldn't leave Yiddishkeit. So when he's a little kid, you teach it to him on his level. So the Rambam's on his level is a bribery, what he calls shaloi lishma. Chassidus has a different approach. Chassidus believe that children have a lot of emunah, and children have a lot of tmimus, and even a little child could cry, he wants to be a novi. Even a little, that's why the Rebbe said, this story from the Rebbe Rashab was told to us, even though we're not the children of Rebbes, and we're not the Rebbes to be, we're regular Shlobes, because the fact that the story was revealed is a proof that today every Yid can have tmimus, can be sincere, and l'shem shamayim at an early age. But be that as it may, when you talk to a little kid, you talk to the kid in his level. And in terms of the Malcham Toshal Torah, when you're using Torah as your chosen tool to remain different than your environment, It means to learn Torah on a level that talks to you where you're holding. I have a Yetzer Hara, my Yetzer Hara wants kach v'kach, and this is how I'm going to manage my Yetzer Hara. You're learning Torah. It's an intellectual thing, but it's intellectual on the level of your child. It's intellectual on the level of your struggle. And it's speaking to you in your language, in your level, in your area. You can be matzliach. There's a wonderful story. There's a lot of wonderful stories. One of my favorite stories. I got like 1,000 favorite stories. But there's a woman who did an interview with GEM, Jewish Education Media. They went to Australia. They spent a few months and interviewed all the Anash. And she says something that almost no one says in the GEM videos. And she says something which is really more important than anybody else says. When people talk about the Rebbe, their experience, they talk about the miracles of the Rebbe. This lady grew up in Crown Heights. She's out of Shlucha in Melbourne, Australia. And she says, we didn't have any miracles. We didn't have any miracles. The Rebbe just gave us advice. The Rebbe Poshet gave practical advice. They used to tell mothers how to raise kids. How did the Rebbe know these things? The Rebbe in Yechidus spent time with families of Anash. It wasn't only miracles. It was Poshet telling mothers how to look after their kids, husbands how to look after their wives, in a very respectful and direct way. So there's a Beis Rivka girl who was a troublemaker for troublemaker land. She was out of control. You know, if the school had it their way, they'd kick her out of the school, and they don't do with her. She had a Yechidus. And she went into the Rebbe to complain about how much she hates school, and she hates this, and she hates this. And the Rebbe says, so give me one example. So she told the Rebbe, they're asking me to do a report on a mitzvah. Take one mitzvah and say for the chinuch of my report. I'm bored. It's boring, not interesting. So the Rebbe says to this young Beis Rivka girl, Crown Heights girl, what do you like? Tell me what you like. What do you like? She says, I like animals. So he says, so write an essay on Tzar L'chaim. And a light bulb, but it changed her life. She's a shlucha. I never thought of that. You know, it was so simple. I'm sorry, I don't know why my ringer isn't off. It was such simple advice. Simple advice. Write what you're good at. Let me turn off my ringer. Okay, now I won't do it anymore. That is called using Torah to fight with the Yetzer Hara on your level. What do you like? You like animals? Rabbi Tzar L'chaim. What do you like? You like chesed? Get involved in doing stuff with chesed. So it's using Torah to keep your temperature different than your environment, but you're using Torah to keep it different than your environment on the level of the environment. And we read on. V'yeshnei oifen shalimud HaTorah, 5 lines, kinderlach, on the bottom page, there's another message of Torah. Shalei mitayda kvi shehi b'shamayim. You're learning Chassidus, Pimis HaTorah. Chassidus is learning Torah, they're learning in Gan Eden. It's beautiful. For those who like Chassidus, and I love Chassidus, it's not just a job. It's a passion. I really do. I love Chassidus. It's my whole life. Chassidus is ruchnius. It's metaphysics. Some people find Chassidus boring. And their tiny is not just it's boring, they don't even fully understand it. And they're right, it's very difficult to understand Chassidus. But I have a chush in it, it's just my nature. Another person has a chush in halacha, a chush in nigla, a chush in Chassidus. I like it. Chassidus speaks about halakus, about godliness. The difficulty with Chassidus is just understanding it, but it takes you to another place. You could use Chassidus to fight our fight to be different than that environment, but that's not engaging with the world. It's raising yourself higher. Let's read. Hagam shelei midatera ba'aretz. 4 lines from the bottom of the page. One is learn Torah in this world. The method of his learning. When he or she is engaged in the learning, the reality of life and the reality of their Yetzer Hara, to use the Lashon HaPosuk, their darkoi, it's not their derech. They're going off on a journey to a place and a level in the world which is pure and beautiful. Pristine, it's very beautiful. It's very holy, it's very precise. There's no shtus. And you're lifting yourself to that world as your tool of fighting the struggles in this life. At the moments that you're using Chassidus to help you separate yourself from your environment, the way you're doing it is you have no shachas to the world. So there's 2 ways of using Torah as your tool for winning the struggle of remaining separate from your environment. You can use nigle, or Torah on a level which speaks to the struggle, and you can learn this there where you're learning Torah on a level which is above the struggle. And the Rebbe finishes. I just explained to you, said the Rebbe, that there's two ways to learn Torah. You can learn Torah on a lower level, learn Torah on a higher level. It's not just true in the learner, it's true in the learning. There is a difference between Nigla and Chassidus. The difference between Nigla and Chassidus is, girls, when a person learns Pnimius HaTorah, he opens up the book and he sees light. When a person opens up a book of Nigla, you know what he sees? He sees darkness, he sees questions. In Nigla, the questions are very important. In Chassidus, it's not really questions, it's just oid. Because Nigla is a Torah that goes from darkness to light, and Pnimius is a Torah of oid. Now, for you and me, it may not be so poshut, because first of all, we have many kashas in Chassidus. Second of all, we don't even understand it. Yeah? But for the truth is that Pnimius is a Torah, the Torah of oid. Let's read it. The B'Teira, Nigla, and Nigla, the Torah which is called Eitzadas, Torah, the tree that knows about good and evil. Yesh, Ba'kashu, Machlekes. You have questions and you have arguments. Parenthesis, V'tzorich li'es Melcham, Tashol Torah. There's a huge war of Torah. L'taretz, to answer, or levader, to give clarity, Hamaskan of this conclusion. So learning Nigla, the Torah, is also engaging in Torah at a level where there's a struggle to find the truth. Or Pnimius HaTorah. On the other hand, the face of Torah. It's called Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. Leis Tamon Leikashu, there's no questions. In other words, you right away see the light, if you're special. V'ad l'mayona is Torah Sabal Shem Tov, until the fountains of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. Shenizgal se b'derei seinu, which is revealed in our generations. B'Torah Chassidus, and Chassidus, that it's a Torah oyer, which is Padiyah B'Shalom. This is why our Sfarim are called Torah Oyer and Eir HaTorah. Or Torah, all of these names indicate this idea that Pnimius HaTorah is lichtig. Now, I'm going to explain something to you, but again, the problem with today is that there's no time for questions, which is unfortunate because it's a good topic. It says in Medrash, it says in Gemara, that the Rabbi Meir had a Sefer Torah with a different letter than we have. In Chumash Bereshis, it describes how Hashem made for Adam and Chava clothing. According to Rashi, the clothing were either fur. Adam and Chava had fur like a shofar, like a hyrix, or it was like scales that covered their whole body. Adam and Chava, Hashem made for them clothing, and they were attached to their body like fur or like scales. So the pasuk says, "Vayas Elokim la'Adam u'le'ishtei kosnos oir." Elokim made for Adam and his wife kosnos, shirts, tunics of oir with an ayin, which means leather. Vayalbishem, and he dressed them in it. So that Meir Sefer Torah, it said kosnos oir with an aleph, tunics of light. So the halacha is, if you open up a Sefer Torah, up a Chumash, it says Vayas Elokim la'Adam u'le'ishtei kosnos oir with an ayin. In the Meir Sefer Torah, it says with an aleph. Why? Because most people, the way they learn is look at the words, and they don't understand, they ask questions. You look at the words, you don't understand, but each question is a door to an answer. The B'chlal, anybody who's an intellectual, what makes you smart is to know what is the question, and not to ask questions stam hazoit. Know what is the question and how to ask. And questions are doors. Questions open up answers. And if a person has questions, I always tell my students, you're always better off with a good question than with a bad answer. If you can go to sleep with a question, the answer will come to you. If you have to dafki give an answer, you'll always give a bad one because you're not prepared. You have to let answers come to you. But the Rabbi Meir, when he opened up a Sefer Torah, he saw Lukus. In Samachov it says, this is the Madrega of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He didn't see questions. Every time he opened the Chumash, he saw Lukus, he saw Lichtigkeit. The Sefer Torah, Lichtigkeit. So Nigla is questions and answers, because the letters are black, they hide the white of the Sefer Torah, and you have to go through the black to get to the white, that's how it's explained. But the Torah of Rabbi Shimon, the Torah of Rabbi Meir, the letters themselves were Oyer, or Lichtigkeit. So you could learn Torah on a level where you have questions, and only then do you find answers. And you can Torah on a level where you look at the Torah and you see Lichtigkeit. And if I had more time, I'd tell you more stories. So this explains Pada B'Shalom. Pada B'Shalom means Torah, and Pada B'Shalom specifically means Pnimius HaTorah. What is the foundation of Pada B'Shalom? Foundation of Pada B'Shalom is there's a fight. No fight, no need for Pada B'Shalom. The fight is that the Elam Haza is like it says in the Hayem Yem from the Pasuk of Pasuk Mishpatim, Shenacha, the Yetzer Hara is my enemy. The world is my enemy. Why am I a Yid? I've come from a different place. And I have to figure out how to navigate this world and to conquer this world and to defeat this world and not chas v'shalom to be defeated by it. And one of the methods of doing that is Torah. And in Torah itself, we have the two methods of Nigla and Chassidus. If this would be a normal class, I would now say, anybody have any questions? And we'd spend the rest of the class doing those questions, but I'm moving on to Pedic Dalet. Now the next Pedic is talking about the word Mikrov. Okay, Mikrov. V'hine. Hapadia, Yecheleliyas, Be'efet Shalichak, Eishal Kira Kanal. You have an enemy. What's enemy? Ilm Hazim, this world. And the way you're going to defeat this enemy is by using Torah. The way you're going to fortify yourself against that enemy is by using Torah. Either Nigla, which would be Machamta Shal Torah, or Pnimi is going to be Shalom of Torah. But in your relationship with the world, you can be far away from the world, you can be close to it. The Alter Rebbe explains. The Pasuk explains, and the Pasuk is Machadesh, Shepadi is Zuhi Mikrovli, the way you fight this battle, being close to the enemy, Be'efet Shal Kiruv, you're close to the enemy. And the Rebbe now explains what the word Kiruv means. Kiruv means you got to be close to the enemy. Not close to the enemy, you sit with the enemy and eat food. You have to be aware of your enemy. Can't ignore the enemy. Yuvan Zay brings up Ibir, Kvegedush, that Mara Zokin Alter Rebbe says in a Maimer. But Maimer is all on a Gemara. That the Gemara says as follows. How mispalo when you daven, your heart has to be up there, but your eyes have to be down here. If you want to get through life, you got to keep your eyes open. You close your eyes, it's terrible. Your heart is in heaven, but you engage with the world by not being afraid of the world. You take it on. You keep your eyes open. You must be in relationship with and see games hamata, also the world. Hainu translates the Rebbe. Shagam b'yes libe l'mayla. A person's heart can be in the sky. Kosher l'mayla involved with the lakus. Tzarech liyas reyes hamata. You have to see what is below. You have to see ha'olam. You have to see the world. V'inyonav and what the world has. Now, girls, this is not for the faint of heart. I'm gonna tell you a lashon haravat. As the Gerer Rebbe, the Pinchas Menachem, this is, you're not going to understand it because you're brainwashed, closed-minded, Lubavitch Chassidim, as am I, which is wonderful. But the Gerer Rebbe, the Pinchas Menachem, gesagt, they had great respect for the Rebbe, for the Lubavitch Rebbe. They used to say, one of them said, the Lubavitch Rebbe weiß wie durchgehen der Welt. The Lubavitch Rebbe knows how to go through the world. And the Tat Ochim, he compared the Rebbe to his father, Mordechai Gerer, who passed away in 1948. It's a special trick that only tzaddikim know how to do, really, how to go through the world. And because you're connected to the tzaddik teaches us how to go through the world, and that's mikrav. Mikrav means your whole avodah is to stay separate from the world. Your whole avodah is to know that your world is your enemy, that there's a fight. But you're not doing that avodah by staying away from the world, you're doing that avodah in the world. Mikrav, from close. Like we discussed in the question part of this Maimon, that mikrav means hand-to-hand combat. That Yid comes into this world and he engages with the world in a way that he's not close in the sense that the world has control over him. He's close in the sense that he's aware of the world. Let's read it. What does krav mean in Torah? What does it mean that a Yid is fighting with this world but has to be close to this world in Torah? The answer is, when a Yid studies Torah, it must be in the kind of way, everything that you learn needs to be actionable. This is a very great lesson of the Rebbe's. Right? We talked about earlier in the year that the Welt sagt Maise Ovis Simen Lavan. The Welt sagt Maise Ovis Sinas Koyach Lavan. And the Rebbe says Maise Ovis Heirah. The Torah is always practical. And if you don't see how the Torah is practical, think a little bit. And you'll figure out it's practical using Tzar Balachayim. Mikrav means don't let the Torah remain theory. Find a way to make the Torah negia lemaise. If you could take from the Torah actions, and that's how you engage your Muhammad with the world, this is called krav. You're fighting the battle from close. Look inside. Ukemaimer is also in the Gemara. Learning Torah is the greatest thing. But you know why learning Torah is the greatest thing? It's because it translates into Maisa Bepel, actions. So you learn Torah, whatever you're learning, makes no difference what. Ask yourself one shaila. I was sitting my parents on Gesundheit came to us for Shuas, which was a very special thing. My parents are, Baruch Hashem, both 39 years old. Medai Yisafa. And they came to us for Yom Tov. They stayed next door to us, that we spent all the meals. So my father, Rabbi Yossi, told me at the table that he learned in 770, and talking now the 60s, the 50s, and the Mashpia was a Shmuel. Shmuel Levit was a very big chassid. It was a moednik cup. He said, if Shmuel Levit knew the Samach Vav, like you know how many fingers you have in your hand. You could see how his memory was, his yeda was unbelievable, of Shmuel. And if he had the Bacham in Samach Vav, he didn't even know the Sefer. He was sitting there talking to them without a book. And he would ask them questions. Every question he would ask, he would say, and vosidas and avoida. What does it mean in life? So my father told me that as a bachar, my father heard this from him 60 years ago or more. More than 60 years ago, yeah. Close to 70 years ago. That he said, that's how they learn Lubavitch. You learn Chassidus, so what does it mean? What does it mean? The mikravli is, what does it mean? Mikravli, what am I? I'm learning Torah. If I want my fight with this world that keeps me in the world and separate from the world to be krav. Krav means I learned the Torah. The Torah lifts me up, and the Torah is close to the world. My fight is up close and personal because everything I learned in the Torah I translate into an action. So I'm waiting the Keira B'chaim. It's a great lesson. And that's the Taich Mikrav and Avodah. That's what the Rebbe is doing. Each one of the questions that we ask, the Rebbe is explaining in Avodah. And he gives another example. Moreover, when you learn, it's first of all, you say to yourself, what's the lesson? And second of all, what's the halacha? There's people learn Torah on different levels. Some people learn Torah because they want to understand the Gemara. When you're just learning the Gemara, it doesn't matter who's right. You just want to understand what this one says and what this one says. Another person learns the Gemara because he wants to know what the halacha is. And this is called la'asukya, it means to place. Shmaita said the learning, aliba, the hilchas, according to the halacha. In other words, hamaskana, la halacha, la maisa, the resolution in actual halacha, binyani ha'elam, that relates to the world. And the best way to have your pada b'shalom be makraf, that your fight with the world is in a way that you're close to the world. The first way is take a practical lesson. And the second way is, so what's the halacha? What's the law? What's the din? What's the maisa bepeil? Ashadavka oz, only then. When you learn a lot of halacha, and this is a whole long samavov, which I'm not going to tell you about. There's like 5 or 6 Maimonim where the Rebbe Rashab explains how special it is when you learn Torah at a level of halacha. Hubo and lamitis, you come to the truth of Havanas Limud, the understanding of the learning, Vakavana, the point of the learning. It's explained at length in the Hemshech Tafresh Samach. Now again, there's no time for me to have lessons for you, but if you look in footnote 24, there's 3 page numbers: Shin Tzadik, Tav Vav, and Tav Chof Elech. Notice, you see that? So by Shin Tzadik it says 390 and on. By Tav Chof it says Tav Chof and on. By Tav Vav it says just page Tav Vav. Boom. One of the most important pages. This is the old print in the Samach. You're not going to find it there now. On that page, the Rebbe Rashab said a very interesting thing. One of the biggest problems with learning Torah is that you enjoy it. You enjoy it. If you enjoy it, your ego is involved. If you enjoy it and your ego is involved, how do you know it's true? So the Rebbe says there's only one kind of learning where your ego is not involved, which is when you are a rov and you have to paskin a shaila and you're afraid. You would rather they ask somebody else, but you're the rov, you're the moira hiro, you're the moira tzedek, you have to give a psak. And your motivation is fear. And when the rov paskins halacha, since his motivation is fear, the ego, which comes from the pleasure, which could offset the credibility that halacha is missing. And the Samach Vav explains that if you learn Torah to paskin halacha, and therefore there's a fear when you're limud Torah, you reach the highest level. It's nothing higher than that. It's like learning Torah with Kabbalah Sid. And that's what the Rebbe is saying here. When you learn Torah l'halacha l'maisa, first of all, it's krav, you're close to the world. And second of all, in a weird kind of way, you're also closer to the truth. I'll hear your question, but I'm not promising to answer. Okay, Perek Hey. So, huh?
Why is it a weird kind of truth? Isn't that of course?
Okay, I take back the word weird. I'll save it for tomorrow. Okay, so Chavre, listen, we explained Pada B'Shalom and Avodah. Pada B'Shalom means the world that I'm struggling with the world that I'm using Torah, and we explained 2 levels in that, right? We explained Krav in Avodah. A, it means everything you learn should have a practical law. B, you should always think in terms of halacha, and when you think in terms of halacha, you find emes. Now goes the 3rd detail. Now, girls, the li is missing. The Rebbe asked 4 questions. He mentions the li on the last page, but he doesn't explain. Page Dalid Hey, Gimel Dalid and Hey, explaining 3 out of the 4 questions in Avodah. Number 1, Pada B'Shalom. Number 2, Mekrov. Now we're doing Kibbut Avim. He doesn't really explain the li. I'm sorry, I don't have time. I apologize. Thank you for understanding. Page Hey. Umamshich bekoso ki berabim hoyu imod. I got 10 minutes and I got 15 lines. 11 minutes. He continues in the pasuk ki. Why was it, or how is it, that a person engages with the world using Torah, and he engages with the world using Torah in a way of krav, where everything he learns is negei l'maisa, and it helps him win the war to remain a part of his environment, remains an endotherm, remains. Someone's papers fell on the floor, and some of them made DVD tape, pick them up. Yeah, what's the reason? How is he able to do it? Kibbut Avim. And there's 2 explanations of Kibbut Avim. Number 1, people help him, and number 2, he's helping people. Kibbut Avim, the many are with him. And number 2, Kibbut Avim, he is with many. And the Rebbe is going to explain both of them in Avodah. Okay, Peter Sha'alef, the first chat is, Shekol Zenas, I did Tfilas Harab. I have a life, I have Nisyonis. How do I win my Yetzer Hara? The answer is people help me. A person amongst you, his B'tachas Hashleimas, Ba'aveda say personally, his Avedas Hashem is B'shleimas. Nevertheless, at the same time, there is a mile in his daven which is altogether higher. When he davens with a minyan, davening with many, you should know that Rebbe made a number of campaigns specifically about Yonah Mashiach and Geula. And the Rebbe talked about learning in a group, learning with a tzibur. And he always said, learning by yourself has advantages because you can concentrate better, you can go in deeper. But there is a different mile in learning with the community, so you should learn a little bit with the community, and the rest of the time you should learn by yourself. We know this from the Gemara. When the Gemara talks about davening, during that Seres Yimei Tshuva, the Gemara says, a whole year, if you want that the Eibush should answer your prayers for sure, you need a minyan. Every Yid is holding in the Madrega of Shleishes Midis Harachamim, so the individual is great as the community. When an individual person davens during the 10 days of Tshuva, it's Kmei Tfilas Arab B'Shaya Beis Hashana, like the minyan davening all year long, which proves that davening with a minyan changes the quality, the likelihood of your tefillah being answered correctly. Still, the Tfilas Harab in Aseres Yemei Tshuva itself, you can't compare the Yochid to the Tzibur. So there's a mile of davening with a minyan. We're coming now from Rus. Rabbi, I need all the time till 12. I need every second. Till at least. One of the details of the Rus story, Kindalach, one of the details of the Rus story is that people don't talk about, it's not Kishmak. It's Rabbi Melech and Machon and Chilyon and Noami were Peidish Ben Atzibur. I told you this. Remember I told you this? Why did they leave Beis Lechem? Because there was a hunger. And they were rich. They had a lot of money. That's the whole tragedy. They lost their wealth. They lost their lives. And Naomi is coming back alone. She's destitute. She has no money. She has no husband. She's going to come back to Beis Lechem. People are going to see her. They're going to spit in the ground in front of her. Because she abandoned the Kehillah. That's why she tells to Ruth, no, but you don't want to come back. You know how people are going to treat me? And that's why Ruth is considered the ultimate Giyotis, because she came to be a Yid knowing that she's going to be treated like the worst Yid possible. The Gemara says that it's a Midah Ra, when the community suffer with them. The meaning of Kibbut Avim is we get through our Avodas Hashem life because we join with other Yid. We're not isolated. In the seminary Aleph, one of the questions, we did like 15 questions. I had to finish the whole list of questions. Had no more time. Was, does a person have to belong to one community, or could they nash from this Chassidus, this Chassidus, this Chassidus. So of course, you have to have one Chassidus. But I said the place where this is going to be most acute is when it comes to your children. If you don't, you can choose any community you want. But one. Otherwise the kids are going to get confused and it'll be terrible. It's hard enough. Kids have to know that our beliefs are solid, not to be pick and choose. The Pasuk says one of the mechanisms of Pada B'Shalom, of getting through life and fighting with lyhadus successfully, is appreciating the fact that we don't do it by ourselves. There's a rabbim that's with us, a rabbim that helps us. That's number one. Now number two, Pirush Habei. You didn't think this was possible. You see, Pirush Habei, second interpretation. At this pace, you finish a Maimon in 2 classes and a half. The Pasuk said, "Shekel l'sarabim is kol Yisrael imodoi." Not that he's joining with the rabbim, but that he's taking the rabbim with him. He's carrying the rabbim on his back. I'll explain to you. The David HaMelech was a ish klali, yochid sherabim tzrichim loy, a man that the whole community needs. So not that he leans on the community leans on him. And the Rebbe has a very simple Rabbi Chaim, and it's all connected by the B'Shalom. Moving up in Mashamevi Balagula Besidure. The explanation to this idea that you win the fight with the Yetzer Hara using Torah in a way that always has a practical Torah, together with other Yidden, either it means that you join with other Yidden or you join other Yidden with you. V'yahavta l'recha kamoicha. You want to fight with the Yetzer Hara about Shabbos and kosher and mikveh and tefillin. Bein adam lamakim. Be nizir and bein ad lachaveda, like the Rebbe said in the first Abrengen, that there are 3 loves. There's a love of God, there's a love of Torah, there's a love of Jews. You can't separate them. The shloisha aves, avas Hashem, avas Torah. If you love Torah and you love the Eibush and you don't love a Yid, you don't really love the Eibush and the Torah. If you love a Yid, you don't love the Torah, you don't really love a Yid. There has to be both, because avas Yisrael and midas Tevis grounds your Yiddishkeit. And it contributes to the Pada B'Shalom. And that's the Taich Kibbeh Rabbin. You know how you win the fight with the Yetzer Hara. What's a measure? If your fight in Adam Lamakam is a good fight, is in your Mein Adam Lachaveh. Let's read it. Shenachon le'meked matfil is correct for Daven Yareini, Mekabel, Allah, I accept upon myself. Mitzvahs, I say the positive command of Yahav L'recha Kamoicha, to love my fellows, I love myself. The Amid is the way of name Mateva V'chul. As soon as you walk into Shul, the brachas hashachai say in your home, Matevu, you come to shul. That's why in the Matevu it says, V'ani berev chastecha ovei v'secha. You're walking into the shul. The first thing you say, walk into the shul, is Areini Makabel. You daven with other Yidden together, and that grounds your avodas Hashem and makes it a successful Pada B'Shalom. V'nimsheches b'chol darges v'shlafei atfilah. Even though you said in the beginning, every step and every rung of the ladder of davening is infused. You want to be close to God, be close to man. Now it's hard. And to many people it's a contradiction. But Chassidus says it's the test, the barometer of the emes, of the Bein Adam Lamakim is the Bein Adam Lachavedi. And that's the second page in Kibbeh Rabbim Hoyimadi. I fortify my fight with my Yetzer Hara, my Pada B'Shalom, with Avos Yisrael. It continues in Matevu and in Heidu and Filas Amida, Alin L'Shabech, Val Kei Nekaveh. And the Rebbe adds, Al-Kei Nekaveh was said by Yeshua. You know what the Rebbe is? Anybody know what the Rebbe is? What are the first 3 letters? Al-Kei Nekaveh's Rosh Tevis. Dum. Kei Neves nicht? Is Rosh Tevis Ochon. Ayin Chof Nun. Does anyone know who Ochon was? You guys learned in the Lubavitch Yeshiva and Beis Rivka. Achon was the man who stole from the Chedim of Yerichai. And there was people died and he was killed. And before he died, it says in Tanakh, 10 Torah, Yeshua said to Achon he should do tshuva. And it says in Sfar that he wrote the tefillah of Al-Kei Nekaveh. Here it says Yeshua wrote, written during his times. When he conquered Israel the first time, a permanent inheritance. Al-Kei Nekaveh, we all have a relationship with the Eibush there. That kol pratim v'daring yisei lebetfil. Every detail, every step in davening is bishlei musam. My connection to Hashem is whole. I de kabbalas mitzvahs asay shebehafta lechamech. By connecting with other Jews being whole. So we just went through the whole chap of this Maimed is to explain the avoida of the Chassidus of Pada B'Shalom, that you fight with the world using Torah. The avoida of the Chassidus of Kivikrov Li, that you bring everything the day Maise, And when you bring everything in the Maisa, you bring everything in Halacha, your Yiddishkeit is strong enough that you should be an Elech Yid in this world. And B'Rabbim HaYomad either means you lean on that Rabbim, or you take that Rabbim with you. And in both of those cases, it fortifies the Pada V'Shal Nafshi. It's actually gorgeous. And all of this is the Rebbe's. This is not... The Alter Rebbe didn't say this. The Rebbe is explaining the avodah. And the rest of the Maimid is a bracha. I give you all the bracha to find a chosen. This is a mensch. When I yerei shamayim. When I ben teira, I talk about chacham. Let's be a big Talmid Chacham. It's enough to learn teira. You should build a beautiful home with health and with shalom and with beautiful fruit and with a lot of parnasa and with a holy mission that's meaningful and purposeful. And you should do it together. I got into trouble when I told this to a bunch of boys, but the Frierdiker Rebbe told a lady who's now passed away, her name was Mrs. Miriam Gordon. She was married to Shalom Gordon from New Jersey. Frierdiker Rebbe said to her when she got married, you should never do anything by yourself. You should talk everything over together with one another.